Welcome to the Discount Property Investor Podcast, where we show you how to buy real estate at a discount so you can create wealth over time and income today. Our mission is to share what we have learned from the experience of others and help you make more money investing like a pro. We want to teach you how to create wealth by investing in real estate, the Discount Property Investor way. Thanks for tuning in.
Welcome back, guys. This is the Discount Property Investor Podcast, episode 15. I'm your host, David Dodge, with co-host Mike Slane.
Hey, guys.
Check out the freewholesalecourse.com, guys, if you haven't been there yet. Jam-packed, tons of free information on how to get started wholesaling in your market today. Also, check out discountpropertyinvestor.com if you're looking for deals in the St. Louis area. We have tons of them on there. You can subscribe and get our emails in the top right hand corner. Today is episode 15, and we really want to dive in and talk about talking with sellers. Okay, talking with sellers is obviously the next step after you get your list and you get your mail out, or you went out and drove for dollars and sent your mail, or you put up your bandit signs. Whatever you are doing to market, the idea with your marketing is to get that phone ringing. So at this point, we hope that you have done what we have taught in previous episodes, as well as the freewholesalecourse.com, to get your phone ringing, okay? Once that phone starts ringing, you have to actually talk to these people.
Yeah, it's a huge stumbling block for a lot of people.
It is a huge stumbling block, absolutely. And when I first started, I was just going, balls to the wall and full throttle, and I just wanted to get my phone ringing. And, after about 3 months, I was like, man, how do I get this thing to slow down a little bit? Because I was still nervous a couple months in talking to these people. But, one thing that really changed the paradigm shift in me was they're just people, and they just want to sell a property, and you're providing them a solution, you're providing them a service, and you should be shooting for that win-win. And it's not hard. You talk to people all day, every day anyway, so you're just going to talk to them about a property that they have, and you're going to be providing them a solution and help them sell that deal.
Absolutely.
So you should be excited when the phone rings and you have to talk to a motivated seller. Don't be scared.
Yeah, and that's what I was kind of saying is a stumbling block. Is a lot of people, I'll see they'll put out some mail and they'll get a couple phone calls and they'll be like, oh yeah, a few calls, haven't called them back yet. Well, you shouldn't have to call them back. First off, you want to answer the phone when it rings. Like, that's super, super important to being successful, is answering the phone when it rings. Again, I think I just can't emphasize that enough, is that you're spending this money, you're spending this effort to get your phone to ring, answer it. And don't be afraid. It's not a big deal. You're just talking to somebody. You're just talking to another person. I think my personal experience, just a total 180-degree shift in my thinking. I used to, and this is years ago now, but if the unknown number would pop up and I didn't have them saved, I'm not answering it. They'll leave a message and I'll get back to them.
Yeah, figure out who that is, and maybe or maybe not.
Yeah, maybe I'll call, maybe I won't. It's completely different now. Now I answer every unknown call. So I'll see my wife and she'll I don't know who that is. I'm just going to send it a voicemail. And I'm like, just answer it.
I prefer unknown calls at this point.
Yeah, that's potentially money.
It's potentially money versus somebody asking me for a favor or something like that.
I'll digress a little bit. So this just happened a couple days ago. Dave was working on setting up a new line for one of our employees. And I answered the phone and he's like, oh, Mike, why'd you answer the phone? I'm like, well, because it freaking rang, man. That's why I answered the phone. You answer the phone when it rings.
Yeah, I was setting up the system.
Yeah. So anyways, I just, again, it's just something I do now. It's what you do. If you can answer the phone, you answer the phone.
Yeah, definitely. If you can answer the phone, answer it, because you got to put yourself in the shoes of the motivated seller too. If you get a marketing piece or you see a bandit sign or whatever, let's say you get a letter and you open that letter and it says, hey, my name is Dave and, I buy houses and I want to buy your house. You can reach me on this number, and you call that number, and you just get some answering message that says, hey, this is Dave, I'm not here, leave me a message. That's not very enticing to want to work with that person.
Right.
If they answer the phone and they're like, hey, this is Dave, what's going on, what can I do to help you? And they're like, oh, I got your letter. And you're like, great, you have a house you want to sell? I want to buy it.
Mm-hmm. I was looking for a house.
Boom.
Yeah, I need another
That's
house.
Like, okay, I'm getting somewhere. I'm getting somewhere fast. That's great. So yeah, like Mike said, if you can answer the phone in real time, make every effort possible to do so. If you can't,
It's not the end of the world.
It's not the end of the world, but you do want to put together a really nice voicemail that explains what you do and who you are. You don't want to just say, "Hey, this is Dave. I'm not here. Leave me a message." In that voicemail, put together some nice content that just says, "Hey, this is Dave. I'm not available. Maybe you got one of my letters," or just elaborate on your voicemail a little bit to let them feel comfortable. That way they know you're going to call them back, and they may leave a little bit more information than just, "Hey, this is John, call me." You want to try to get them to leave information like, "Hey, this is who I am. I have this property for sale. I got one of your letters." The more information, the better, because you're kind of building rapport without even having to talk to them.
Absolutely. And I know when I started, in the message, I would say maybe ask for the address. Because, again, it makes me, when I started especially, I was a lot more confident on the phone when I knew the address of the property, because I could look it up and do a little bit of...
Prior to calling them back.
Prior to calling them back. So it just gives you that... that little sense of confidence or whatever it is that'll help you pick up the phone and actually call them back. Mm-hmm. So again, it's a great point. Leave a nice voicemail message. So if you have a day job and you really can't, just make sure you have that set up properly. Or if you're on the phone. Whatever.
Yeah, or if you're on the phone and you missed the call.
That's extremely important. Set up a separate number, I would recommend, for your marketing pieces. Mm-hmm. Have a good voicemail and answer the phone if you can. Mm-hmm. So let's fast forward a little bit. Let's get into actually talking with the sellers. I'm going to say there's probably 2 actual goals that you have for yourself when you're on the phone. The first goal is building rapport with the seller. Mm-hmm. And building rapport is basically all about making a friend. So when somebody calls, you are trying to basically break down that wall, because most people, they call and they're going to think,
they're skeptical.
Very skeptical. So they don't necessarily want to give their house away. That's what most people, they want to sell.
Hey, I got your letter. What is this? Why are you sending me a letter? Mm-hmm. They're going to be a little bit, just kind of forward with you in the beginning. So yeah, you want to try to make them a friend. Mm-hmm. You want to present them the idea that you are a buyer and they may be a seller, and you want to work with them. You want to help them.
So, yeah, and there's super easy ways, and my favorite way, and it's just like kind of my personality too, is mirroring. I think is the easiest way to really. I mean, it's almost subconscious.
Mike, what is mirroring?
Way to build rapport. Mm-hmm. So mirroring is basically acting like a chameleon. So if you've got a seller, like Dave said, they come on and they're a little bit more pushy, more hostile. They're like, "Hey, why'd you send me this letter?" Well, then your response can be, "Well, why did you call me?" I mean, you just want to be a little bit, if they're direct, be direct right back.
But it works.
It is. It breaks down that wall. Then they're going to be like, "Well, you sent me this letter, and I was just curious." And then you can take it down a notch and say, "Okay, well, that's good. I'm an investor here, and we're looking to buy houses. Is this property something you're interested in selling?" I mean, again, you want to keep asking questions, I would say, but definitely mirror them.
So if they talk fast, you talk fast.
It's a great
example. If they talk slow, you talk slow. If they talk
example.
Quiet, you may want to talk a little bit quieter.
Absolutely.
You don't want to, overwhelm them, or mirroring. It's a great concept, but people like people that are like them. Mm-hmm. And if you can, put yourself in a situation where they feel like they're talking to themselves or somebody like themselves, then building the rapport is going to be a lot easier.
Yeah, so it's just done on a subconscious level when you're doing exactly what they do. And so like Dave and I, like if you're talking with your hands a lot, use your hands a little bit more. If they talk with their hands a lot, talk with your hands. Mm-hmm. It's when you're out there meeting with people. So the other thing I would say is don't talk too much. So your goal is to ask them questions and find out about them, and you want them to open up to you. That's really...
Mike, that's such a great point, because when I first started doing this, I always had the tendency to try to dominate the conversation. And I didn't do it on purpose. Mm-hmm. I was scared of talking to these sellers, and it's just whenever you get scared, I think, or nervous is a better word, you tend to talk a lot. And well,
everyone's different. I know you for you,
I
that's
talk
absolutely
for hours
true.
and hours and hours. Yeah. But that's a great point, though. Don't talk too much, and we're going to get into that in just a couple minutes here. Whenever we talk about our script that we're going to be giving away, and you can also find it in the show notes. But the idea is to ask them about them and ask them about the property and get them talking, because the more they talk, the less questions you have to ask. and the more they can talk about them or their property, the more comfortable they're going to feel.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Gosh,
So-
I can't remember the name of the book. Oh, geez. Maybe it was How to Win Friends and Influence People. But it was basically it's having a conversation with someone. If you're able to basically not talk, they're almost guaranteed they're more likely to say, "Oh, I really like that person." If they were talking about themselves,
They
all
listened
night.
to me.
Yeah, they were man. They really are a great guy. Well, and they're doing all the talking.
Doing all
It's
the
super
talking.
easy. So again, don't talk too much. Make sure you're kind of trying to direct the conversation or steer the conversation the way that you want to go, which is focusing on the house. And
Just ask the right questions. You don't need to ask a ton of questions. Just ask the right ones, and we'll give that to you here in a few minutes in the script.
Right.
Absolutely.
So the first goal then was to build rapport with your sellers. My second goal, and probably the most important thing on the call, is to determine the motivation. You have to figure out why they need to sell.
The most important thing.
Yes, even motivated sellers are going to hide it from you at first. Nobody's going to say, "Oh, I am desperate to sell my house." I mean,
I haven't made a mortgage payment in 4 months. and I'm going into
if I don't
bankruptcy.
get someone to buy this in the next 15 days, I'm going to lose all my equity.
Yeah.
Like that.
They're
that
not going
is
to tell you that
not
right away.
gonna
Now,
happen.
will they tell you that if you build enough rapport? Absolutely.
Sure.
And that's the purpose of building rapport, is to make them feel like you're trustworthy and that you're their friend. And then the can of worms is going to open, and you're going to learn all that. But yeah, like
so
you
on call
said,
one, it's probably not going to happen, especially right away on call one. Maybe not even on call 2 or 3. Who knows? But again, you want to ask, why do you want to sell? And I'm going to suggest entering that into the conversation more than once. I'm not sure if we've got that in the script, but again, you want to enter it in. I mean, I like to interject it at least 2 or 3 times. So why did you need to sell again? And just kind of rephrase it a little differently. Why did you want to sell? Why did you need to sell? Or what's going on again? I just ask it several different times in several different ways.
Yeah, I usually just say, why do you need to sell? Just keep it simple. You know, Mike, what would you say, this is kind of off topic, but not really.
Yeah, sure.
What would you say the average duration of a call is when it comes in? Because I bet you my duration's 3 times as long as yours, just because I talk forever.
Absolutely.
But I feel like I do such an awesome job of building rapport with these people because, you know, I just ask the right questions that for me, I can usually get them to tell me on the first, maybe not the first call, but usually, you know, the second call, that they're losing the property or that, you know, this situation is terrible, so on and so forth. But what would you say the average duration of, you know, an inbound motivated seller call between the time that you answer and the time that you've either determined that you want to make an appointment with them or that this is not the deal for you today?
Absolutely. So obviously, you know our business. We've set it up a little bit differently. So I'm not handling a lot of our calls anymore, our inbound initial
But
calls.
when you were?
When I would say I probably got it down to 3 to 5 minutes is about the length of my first call.
I wish I could do that.
Yeah, so I was going to say, I bet yours is 15 to 20.
Mine's 15 to 20
Yeah.
on average, you know, and sometimes it can only be 2 if they, you know, are just calling and saying, well, I got your letter and I'm not really interested in selling, but I want to hear your offer, you know, and then it's like, okay, I'm wasting time at this point. But if they're really motivated, I don't mind spending sometimes 25, 30 minutes on the phone with them, because then when I go out and meet them, they're like excited to meet me. They've already talked with me a bunch, you know, but
See,
ideally you want to keep it down to 3 to 5 minutes.
And we've got, I guess, very different approaches too. So I'd rather, if they're motivated and I've got a 2 or 3 minute call, 3 to 5 minute call, I'll set the appointment right away, and I'll set it for as soon as possible. So if I know they're motivated, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to meet them, and that's where I'm going to spend an hour. Like I'll just hang out. I'll be awkward and quiet and just hang out for a long time.
out. Yep.
Make a friend. I mean,
But I guess the point that I brought that up is there's really no there's no right way or better way. I mean, you want to ask the right questions, of course, which we're going to tell you here in the script. But you know, if the call's 3 to 5 minutes, great, and if it's 15 or 20 minutes, not a big deal either. I mean, at the end of the day, you want to set the appointment.
Yeah.
That's your goal.
So there's exactly. I was going to give the recap. So basically, you're trying to build rapport. The next step is determine their motivation, and the end game is to set that appointment for sure. So Dave, you want to go ahead and kind of jump into a little bit of the script that we
this is just a script that we put together here. It's again, there's not a
You don't need a script.
You
I
don't
that
need
out
a
there.
script at all. Absolutely. And like when I first started, I had the script that I have here, and really it's just a bunch of lines. Like it has a couple bullets for the most part, but really it's just an area for you to write down the information, you know. So typically whenever you get your motivated seller calls, you're going to answer and you're going to say, good morning, this is David, how may I help you? Or good afternoon, this is David, how may I help you? And then the seller is going to say, well, hello, this is, and then their name. And they're going to say, I received one of your letters. And, a small percentage of them are going to ask, why you're sending them a letter or how you got their name. And one of the ways that we, kind of move past this objection right off the get-go, typically first question, how'd you get my name, or why are you sending me a letter? And the best way to handle that objection is just say, we use a direct mailing list that targets older neighborhoods, and it's very general. And that's typically it's going to solve their problems, it's going to answer their questions, and it's going to kind of disarm them. It's like, we're not targeting you specifically. Unfortunately, you're not special. We send out a lot of mail, and we just target older neighborhoods. Okay, but them asking that question is actually not a bad thing, because once you follow up with that answer, your next question is, are you interested in selling your property, or do you have a property that you are interested in selling? And that's going to kind of open up the questionnaire for you to start getting information from them. Okay. Now, the whole time that you're asking these questions and you're kind of driving them and directing them towards, you getting the information that you need, you want to build rapport. So if they ask you a question, answer it. And I don't know what that question is going to be. It's different every time.
Right. That's why a script is really tough to nail down.
But it is a good idea in the beginning to take what we're putting together here and print it out.
Absolutely.
And write this stuff down. If you're using a CRM, then you can type this stuff in. But this is a great way to keep track of all the information, because they're going to throw a lot of it at you, especially when you ask the right questions and when you build a rapport. They're going to just start talking. Like I said, some of my phone calls are 20 minutes, and that's a lot of information that I'm taking down. But the more information you can get, the better sometimes. Okay. So,
well, in the script also, the reason it's so good is it, as a newer investor, it helps you focus and remember. Oh, I need to ask this. I need to ask. Oh yeah, how many beds and baths is that right, or whatever. I mean, you definitely want to focus in on it.
So let's recap just the intro real quick here. Good morning. This is David. How may I help you? And then they're going to say, hi. This is Mike, for example, and I received your letter. Again, they may ask how you got the list. They may not. If they do, just say, we target older neighborhoods and do a lot of direct mail. Are you interested in selling, or do you have a property that you would be interested in selling? And then from there, just start taking down information. So the first thing I always get is their name, and then I'll always put the date too. The date's really important, because whenever you start your follow-up process, you need to know when you first talk to this person and when they first reach out. So name, date, and then I'll get the address of the property. I'll try to get as much of the detail in the address as possible. I want to get the city, I want to get the state, I want to get the zip, just in case that you're not sending a letter to somebody that's out of state and they're trying to sell you another property that's also out of state. Make sure you have a property that's local. And then the most important question is next, okay? What is your reason for selling? Or why do you need to sell this property?
Absolutely.
That is the most important question you can ask. And it's always a good idea, like Mike mentioned a couple minutes ago, to ask this question several times. But I always ask this question after I get their name and their address and the date. So you got to get a couple little minor things that are very basic and simple and quick. But then immediately, you always want to jump into, what is your reason for selling? And then just shut up. Don't talk.
Absolutely.
Okay?
That's a great strategy, too, because you get them to answer their name and the address of the property. Those are super simple things.
Yeah, the date you don't need to ask for. You can just get.
But the name and the address, they're not going to say no to that, because they are going to sell a property. So then immediately you're asking the most important thing, which is their motivation. So what is your reason for selling? That's
absolutely
excellent.
You got to ask that. No, don't be. You had a great point. You have to figure out their level of motivation, and that's the best way to just directly ask them. What is your reason for selling? And then, just be quiet and let them talk. And typically, if they start talking and then you don't try to interrupt them or, try to start talking again, they'll just keep going. There may be a pause in there or even several, but they'll just keep talking. So let them go. So another reason that we don't like, using a script per se is because the conversation doesn't flow naturally. So, the script that we have, again, the majority of it's just lines where you can write on, okay? Because you want the conversation to flow naturally. You want to build that rapport. You don't want to try to ask them how much money they owe before you ask them why they're selling. It just doesn't make sense.
Yep.
Okay? So we're flowing here. So you got their name, their address. Next, most important question, what is your reason for selling? Let them speak. Okay? So they're going to tell you a lot of information in that period. So once they kind of get to the point where they're done telling you their reason for selling, the next thing that we always want to know is, is the property occupied or is it vacant? Just simple, one or the other. If it's vacant, great. That's going to be an easy property and their level of motivation is going to probably be higher. If it's occupied, then you can kind of expand on that and say, okay, is it owner occupied or are you renting this property? And that's pretty basic. If they're renting it, you just want to expand on this stuff, guys. This isn't rocket science. So if they're renting it, oh, that's great. Tell me a little bit about the tenants. How much money are you collecting in rent? How long have they been there? Are they good? I mean, it's 3 basic, simple questions. You don't even need to write that stuff down in order to ask them. You just know, like, oh, it's rented. Oh, that's interesting. How much are you getting? How long have they been there? Are they good? So on and so forth. Okay, so once you get that information about, their name, address, why they're selling, and then a little bit about the property's occupancy, then I usually will ask them for their phone number. Okay, I usually already have it on my caller ID, but the way that I say is, listen, this information is really great. I'm excited about, learning more about this property, and hopefully I can come out and see it in the next, couple days or maybe even today. What's a good number to reach you back at in case that we get, disconnected or I need to reach back out for more questions? And the reason that I do ask for this number versus just write down the caller ID is they may be calling you from a work phone. They may
all the time.
They may be over at their grandma's house for the evening and they're going through their mail. You never know what the situation is. So you want to always ask, hey, what's a good number to reach you back at? And I'll usually write down the number that they tell me and the number that's on the caller ID. 50% of the time it's the same number, but 50% of the time it's not. It's a different number. So now I have 2 points of contact to reach this person, okay? If you want to get an email, that's great too. I usually don't right away because it's just not important right now. If I need to reach them, I'm going to call them, So next I just say, hey, I just have a few more questions for you. Do you own the house outright or do you have a loan on it? Just try to get a little bit of information about the finance of the deal. So you've already got their level of motivation and you've determined if it's vacant or occupied. So next just say, do you own this house outright or do you have a loan on it? And they may say, oh, I have a loan on it. So instead of jumping right into the next question of, oh, okay, how much do you owe? There's a little bit of a science there to ask that question without being too...
People get funny about money.
They'll get funny about money. It's a great... I love that.
It's
it's a great...
Well, it's like with income and anything else. People get a little funny about it. So you do have to
you have to approach it lightly. Properly. Tread lightly. So what I'll do is, if they say they have a mortgage, I'll just say, oh, okay, great. And then I'll move on, but I'll come back to it. So I'll say, is there anything about the property that I may need to know about, like any taxes being past due, or do you have any sewer bills or any type of debts on the property that I may need to be made aware of if I buy this property? And that's just a great way to kind of open up the conversation about money without being too intrusive. So are there any back taxes? And oftentimes they'll say, yeah, I haven't paid them in 2 years, or I'm 3 years behind. I have to get them paid in 6 months or I'm gonna lose it. And then once they start talking about numbers, then it's really easy to keep them talking about the numbers. So then you can say, oh, okay, great. You got your taxes paid or you owe some taxes. You don't have any, sewer bills or trash bills that are unpaid. How much do you owe on the property? And often whenever you structure it like that, they're not going to have a problem telling you. If they say, oh, well, that's not my business, no problem, move on. If they tell you, great, write it down, And then the next little bit of information is just about the actual property itself. And this is just basic stuff. But again, some people would maybe ask this in the very beginning. I ask it in the end. So the next questions are, about the home itself. When was it built? How big is it? So year built, square footage. What's the style of the home? And style is actually a really great question because people don't really understand that question. Like style could be contemporary or it could be
mid-century modern.
Slab. It could be lots of things. So whenever you say, what's the style of the home, just ask that question and just be quiet, just wait. And oftentimes they'll say, oh, it's a piece of junk.
That's true.
And then you're like, okay, level of motivation's there. I can get a good price. And if they do tell you the style, write the style down. You know, and then of course, last but not least, how many floors does it have? A basement? How many beds? How many baths? Okay, and that's the nuts and bolts of what you need. Okay, if they're in a hurry, the last question you should ask is, hey, just describe the shape of the home. You know, excellent, good, average, or poor. And just listen, take notes. And they're usually going to tell you, oh, it's poor, it's been vacant for 4 years, it needs this, and this. You know, it's just a piece of junk I want to sell. Or they're going to say, it's actually in pretty good condition. I've been renting it out for a couple of years. It may need carpet and paint. Other than that, it's good to go. So you've got what you need. If you have more time with them and they're not in a hurry, then just elaborate on some of that stuff. You know, oh, how is the roof? Has there been any remodels or any additions to the property? You know, have you had any major issues lately? Just kind of elaborate on it. But really what you're looking for is just the nuts and bolts of, you know, the square footage, the number of floors, the bed and the bath, and, you know, the overall condition of the property.
I would, again, and that's a great script to get you guys started. So check that out in the show notes. I would say don't be a slave to the script though either. You definitely want to let the conversation flow naturally. I know Dave's already said that. Just want to reiterate that.
Absolutely.
Is that you're having a conversation with another person. It's not a scripted conversation.
It's not a scripted conversation.
You've got to just be yourself and build rapport. And being yourself, I think, is what's going to help you really establish or build that rapport with people. When you make a connection with someone. So.
I do want to just add on this, and that's it. That's the whole script.
That's it.
That's all there is to it. So, you know, I do want to add on this, though. Every seller that you talk to is going to be a little different. They're going to have a little bit different level of motivation, and they're going to have a different house. So, you know, we have this script just so you can look at the questions that you need to ask, but they don't need to really be asked in order. The only question that I would say that definitely needs to be asked in any type of order will be, what is your reason for selling? And it needs to be at the top of your list. So get their name, get their address, and then immediately before you jump into anything else about bed, bath, conditions, square footage, vacancies, or occupied, is what is your reason for selling? Because their level of motivation is everything in this business. Okay? And again, if you do it right and you build rapport correctly, and, you know, just simply ask questions and be quiet, let them talk, most of these questions they're going to tell you, where you don't even need to ask. I mean, I've had callers call me and I'll ask them one question, you know, what's your name? And I'll have the whole list, the whole sheet filled out within 5 minutes, because
some people love
they
to
just
talk.
love to. I'm one of them. They'll just they love to talk, and they'll talk and they'll talk and they'll talk. And you'll have everything you need to know. And at the end of the call, you can say, "Listen, I got everything I need. Are you available tomorrow afternoon at 3 p.m.? I'm coming out." And they'll say, "Great." And they're like, "I'll see you then." And it's a done deal, you know. So, but again, in the show notes, we're gonna have an example of this script. And lastly, just want to reiterate here, guys, don't worry about following this word for word. All this is just good questions that you should be asking. That's it.
Yep.
You know? Yep. So keep it simple. Just another human on the other end of that phone. Just talk to them. Figure out what their problem is and offer them a solution. That's what we're doing in this business, is we're just trying to help people buy their properties and offer them a solution. Always shoot for that win-win.
Great. All right, guys, let's go ahead and wrap up then. I guess the action item for today, if you haven't sent out any direct mail or put out bandit signs or whatever, your phone's not ringing, you need to get your phone ringing. So go back, listen to episode number 14 again, and send out some direct mail. Like, let's just get it going so your phone's ringing, so you can apply some of this knowledge that hopefully we're putting out there for you guys.
I mean, if you guys are listening to this episode 15 already and you haven't sent out direct mail, I mean, you should
send some
do that
mail.
Immediately.
Or bandit signs.
Or
Again,
bandit
whatever your
signs.
strategy is.
Yeah.
But start doing something.
Start marketing, guys. I mean, we've touched on this several times. You are in the marketing business, and if you don't have a marketing budget, even if it's like $50, then you'll never, you're not going to be, successful in this business without having a marketing budget. And that budget could even be time. But you need to have a marketing budget. You need to start marketing immediately.
Great. So, guys, let's remember, go ahead and check out the freewholesalecourse.com at freewholesalecourse.com. That is a great course Dave and I put together. Has basically everything you guys need to get started. And if you're interested in properties in St. Louis, please check us out at discountpropertyinvestor.com. You can subscribe, get all of our deals that we're putting out to our buyers. Because, again, that is our primary source of income here is real estate. We are out there doing it every day. Dave, you want to do the quote here, wrap up the episode?
Absolutely. The best investment on earth is earth. It's a good quote.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks for listening to the Discount Property Investor Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe to help us reach a wider audience. We would also appreciate it if you left us a review on iTunes or Stitcher. Thanks in advance for your support. And remember, you make your money when you buy and get paid when you sell. Now let's go build some wealth.